Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are just past the midway point of the 2042 season. Rockies having a good year at 47-35. We are 2 games clear of the San Diego Padres in the National League West. But if the season were to end today, we'd be behind both the St. Louis Cardinals and the Atlanta Braves in the National League. So even though we'd have bounced back from last year when we lost the division to the Padres by 1 game, we still would be facing a wild card series, only at least this time we'd have home field advantage. Talked a lot towards the end of last episode, doing a just random quick deep dive into our draftees over the last several years and how we have really struggled to develop players over the last several years of this sim. We have a big-time scouting and player development budget, and although we were in a situation a couple of years ago where I forgot to re-sign some coaches, we've bolstered the minor leagues to the point where I really don't think that our coaching, our scouting budget, or our player development budgets are the issues. A lot of good and thoughtful comments on this topic from Rayfell7, Not My Four-Ply, Sage Dirks, and Ravenspawn 3. And a lot of good hypotheses, a lot of good thoughts, a lot of good questions. Certainly, the abilities of our scout is something that has come into question with the fact that we seem to have picked a lot of players very recently that we thought had very high floors and very high ceilings with a lot of the college players that we picked, particularly in recent years. And those ceilings have collapsed oftentimes within 1 or 2 scouting reports of us drafting the players, and the floors seem to have dropped even for college players as well. I don't think it's an issue with our scout, Justin Abbott. You can see he's actually a extremely talented scout, outstanding at scouting the majors, minors, internationals, and amateurs. I think, in my mind, there's 2 things that are the likely cause of the reason why we've been struggling with some of our more recent picks. One is just really bad luck. Certainly possible. Number 2, though, I think I don't appreciate enough the differences in the new version of the game with the scouting changes that they've made to the dynamics between highly favor tools scouts and highly favor ability scouts. Highly favor tools scouts had kind of been the default setting for many of us in OOTP scouting for the last several years, and while it could just be bad luck why we've been struggling so much, I think it's just as likely or more likely that I'm using a highly favored tools scout incorrectly or putting too much confidence on perhaps the perceived ceilings of a highly favored tools scout versus a highly favored ability scout. And the other thing, I don't know whether this is something that the developers at OOTP would have done or not, but given that it had become honestly so well known in the OOTP community that a highly favored tools scout could be a pretty good advantage depending on how you use them, there is part of me that wonders if they've just kind of nerfed something in the background for highly favored tools scouts that makes them somewhat less effective than highly favored ability scouts, even if the ratings look a certain way. I tend to think it's probably just that I haven't played enough with highly favorability scout since I haven't had any in this playthrough. And it's probably something that I need to spend some time offline preparing for and understanding a little better before OOTP 27 comes out. But I think that's something that I do need to explore. You can see we just have a year left on this contract with Justin Abbott. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this season. So may take that as an opportunity to hire a scout who's highly favorability and play around with them over the coming several seasons. As I said, odds are that I'm not going to find a scout randomly on the market who on paper is as good as Justin Abbott, but giving some more thought to a highly favorability scout and kind of practicing with one and seeing how we do across a number of IAFA periods in drafts, and then most importantly how those players develop over time, hopefully will increase my knowledge and potential perspective on how to use scouts going forward. And it's possible that maybe just a neutral or a favor tools or favorability scout could be the sweet spot in the game right now. And it's just not something that unfortunately I've spent enough time investigating to really have the answer to right now. But do appreciate all of the thoughts, questions, and hypotheses from viewers on the topic. And it's going to come into play for us very shortly because we're at the end of June and we've only got about a week and a half until the first-year player draft. And we will finish up this episode by talking through the options who are there and hopefully making a decision that will be somewhat more productive than the players that we've drafted in recent years. Got a game against St. Louis at home today, and then moving into the month of July, final game of the series against the Cardinals. Then we'll be on the road for 3 in Miami, back at home against Arizona, and then we'll start a road trip against Pittsburgh before we get to the draft. And some good news on the injury front as we head towards the draft. Jason House, the two-way player, pitcher/infielder, he suffered a pretty serious injury, one of many over the course of his career, partially torn labrum about a week into the season. He's missed the last 3 months at this point, wrecked now in terms of his injury proneness. Going to put him on a rehab assignment, probably keep him in AAA until the All-Star break just to ensure that he works himself back into shape and also gives us a little more time to make a decision since we don't have a obvious player that we want to move down to AAA, but we certainly will look to make a move at some point. I guess it is possible that we send Ryan Harville down, the young pitcher, 13 games for us now this year with a 7.56 ERA. Control continues to be a huge issue for him with 12 walks and 16 2/3 innings. Basically been a replacement level pitcher for us. We could send him down, and that would avoid us having to make a decision on one of our infielders, and House would essentially be our 13th pitcher once again, and an opportunity to potentially eat up some innings for us in hopefully low pressure situations since he's honestly not that good of a pitcher. And we've made it to the draft. Honestly, our Rockies not playing well here in the month of July. We did end up winning the final game in June and our first game in July to complete the sweep against the Cardinals. But then we proceeded to lose 2 out of 3 in Miami, proceeded to lose 2 out of 3 at home against Arizona. And we've lost the first 2 games of this series to the Pirates. So we are now in a flat-footed tie with the Padres at 51-41 for the lead in the National League West. Definitely could see ourselves making a trade relatively soon. We talked last episode about some of the options at the catcher position and the struggles that we've been having there with J.D. Lee. And while the focus in this episode is going to be on who's available for us with the first round pick in our draft, and we'll hopefully be able to get some input from the worldwide scouting department on that topic when we look at the hitters who are available on the trading block. Couple of interesting catchers. Our former catcher, Mike Girard, although given his injury issues, I don't think he's the answer. But Alex Arellano is reasonably accessible in terms of what we have to give up to acquire him. He's not been a great offensive player this season with an 84 WRC plus and a 0.8 WAR. And we certainly don't love that he's got a horrible arm as a catcher, and certainly don't love giving up a bunch of resources, or more accurately, a resource or two for a guy who was claimed on waivers not all that long ago. But when we do take a look at what we've got from J.D. Lee this year, only a 25 WRC at this plus, 25 WRC plus at this point. He's a full win below replacement, hitting just a $180 on the year. His blocking and framing skills and his arm are all declining, and clearly his bat is nothing special anymore. We owe him $18 million over the course of this season. He would consider a trade to Philadelphia, shopping him around. Not expecting there to be any offers, and you can see no one offers us anything for him. If we were to retain 100% of J.D. Lee's contract, nobody wants to touch him at all. So although in theory we might be able to work something out with Philadelphia, odds are we're just going to be eating most of his contract. But at this point, I think that Arellano is a better option, so probably we'll go ahead and work out a trade for him before we move forward from this episode. But again, the focus on this episode is going to be seeing who's available for us with our 34th pick in the draft this year. I believe we picked about 40th, right at the end behind all of the supplemental picks last year. So hopefully a little better opportunity for us to find somebody interesting. Can see that we've simmed ahead to our pick, number 34 overall. We'll be on the board in the second, third, fourth, and fifth rounds at all, as we haven't been particularly active in the free agent market, particularly the high end of the free agent market in recent years. Catcher Moises Garcia, if we look at the mock draft, was projected to go number 9 overall, almost 19 years old. Looks like he can be competent defensively with a good eye. Pretty big bonus demand, hoping that we find someone more interesting than the Hondo Hurricane to consider, even though catcher is certainly a spot of need for us. Not sure that a 18-year-old is going to fix that at the major league level anytime soon. Looking at the draft pipeline, starting pitcher Billy Capes, left-hander. Like the potential arsenal of 5 pitches, 21-year-old college player out of UVA. Not particularly well developed for a college player. Does have some positive personality traits, but certainly would expect a higher floor and hopefully even a higher ceiling from someone that we'd be picking that early. Another college starting pitcher, Matthew Vance, much more interesting. Don't love the low baseball IQ, but he's got good stamina. 3-pitch arsenal right now, still with potential to do some work on that changeup and turn it into a 4-pitch arsenal. We think the stuff could be average, movement above average, and control a little bit above average, facing a great level of competition at Cal. Certainly of these 3 players that we've looked at, Matthew Vance is the most interesting to me. But hopefully we'll find some other interesting players who our scout thinks has higher potential for whatever that's worth at this point. First baseman Keith Kennedy, strong recommendation from our scout. Durable high school player, looking for a big bonus demand, but similar to the last couple of years, we've got money to spend. Left-handed hitting, first baseman, potentially his gap power, home run power, and an eye that are all going to be well above average. No speed, not that good defensively. could play left field or first base, but really I think the hope with him is that his bat fully develops and you've got a big-time left-handed hitting designated hitter. We already talked about Matthew Vance. Catcher David Slocum, decent blocking rating. Other than that, pretty average-ish in terms of his catching skills, like the high work ethic. Could have a little bit of home run pop in the bat. Don't think he's going to be all that great at making contact. The 18-year-old is committed to Dallas Baptist University, which I don't think is necessarily a top-line college baseball program, so not necessarily an incredible sign for Mr. Slocum. The last guy on the top of our scouts list is another first baseman, Bubba Dull, the switch hitter. Home run power and the eye we think could be incredible. Definitely going to strike out a lot, struggle to make contact, similar to the other first baseman. Not a lot of speed, doesn't bring much to the table defensively anywhere. Is 6'8", though, so that will work in his favor. You can see despite mediocre to poor ratings, could be an above-average major league first baseman just by virtue of his height and reach. One other guy we'll look at here, and might as well just move to the draft pools to see that. You can see there's only 4 players left in the draft that our scout says has 70-plus potential, and they are all position players. We've already talked about the catcher David Slocum. We've already talked about the first baseman Bubba Dull. Already talked about the first baseman Keith Kennedy. The one guy we haven't talked about is another catcher, Jared Hargis. Really not that good defensively. Potentially outstanding home run power and a really good eye. He could, if he made it to the majors and had a 600 at-bat season, which is going to be hard for a catcher, but he had a 500 at-bat season in the majors. He looks like he could, with that 20 avoid strikeout ratings, theoretically maybe strike out in about half of his major league at-bats, which would just be dreadful. Going to struggle to make contact. I can see why our scout at least knows me well enough that that was not one of the top players that he was propping to us, particularly with a $10 million a year demand. We'll take a look at the 6 or 7 guys with 65 ceilings and then pick out a couple of the large number of guys with 60 ceilings that we really like to hopefully give you a relatively fulsome view of the options we have available here. Second baseman Charlie Fox, a guy who could be a bit above average at everything. Can't put a ton of weight on that potentially exceptional gap power because he doesn't have great speed. Low leadership, DC Fox, probably not the answer. Shortstop Dan Macon, switch hitting shortstop. A little more interesting to me. Don't love the low home run power, but the contact and the gap power could both be well above average. Could draw a decent amount of walks, play multiple positions in the infield, and has above average speed and decent base running instincts at this point that maybe could be improved. Switch hitting shortstop is interesting. Right-handed hitting shortstop Andres Morales, another guy who looks like he's just going to strike out an obscene amount of times, but the gap power, home run power, and eye could all be exceptional. The contact is decent, but the strikeouts are going to be a pretty significant issue in my view. Certainly no guarantees that he'll even reach his potential anywhere else. Certainly the expectation would be that he's not going to reach his potential everywhere else. Find it unlikely that I'm going to view Andres Morales as the way to go. Third straight shortstop, Jesse Parker, right-hander. Another guy with really interesting home run power. The rest of his offensive profile is meh to mediocre-ish, average-ish. Don't love the low error rating as an infielder. Could also play a corner outfield position. Hoping that there will be someone more interesting that we find, because right now I'm not necessarily all that inspired by any of the guys we've looked at. Center fielder Travis Piglet Ronning, switch hitter out of New Mexico Highlands University, where he's only faced a fair competition level. Really like the outfield range, like the speed, and although he's not going to be a great contact hitter, our scout loves the gap power, home run power, and eye. Tons of potential here. To be honest, this profile of a college player who is not facing the highest level of competition, but our scout thinks could be absolutely incredible, is something that we've seen in several other players that we've drafted or strongly considered drafting in early rounds in recent years. As I noted, we haven't had a lot of success with those kind of players. Don't love some of the personality traits, and also don't love that he's only hitting 287 at New Mexico Highlands University. No offense to NMHU, but if we want him to be a major leaguer, you would think that he'd be doing more than hitting 287 there. Also striking out in over a third of his at-bats against mid to lower level college competition. So not sure that Piglet is the answer, although on paper he's a lot further along than most of the guys we've been talking about. Second baseman Zach Trahan. Don't love the low adaptability and work ethic. Don't love the defense, but the bat, really good contact and potentially exceptional gap power to go with really good speed. First baseman Ruben Villagrana, 22-year-old out of southeastern Louisiana, so he's at least faced a good competition level. Another first baseman, not a ton of speed, not a ton to bring to the table defensively. Certainly doesn't have the height of some of the high school first basemen we looked at. But his bat is reasonably far along and does have the potential to hit some home runs and draw some walks, at least according to our scout. And unfortunately, the crew with 60 ceilings is not incredibly inspiring. You can see, those of you who know me, there's some guys whose personalities are just going to completely turn me off. Four guys that to me are slightly more interesting. The center fielder, Eric Bertrand. Obviously, I don't love his struggles with strikeouts and making contact. But the gap power, the home run power, and the eye could all be well above average to exceptional. He's got very good speed and base running instincts, high leadership. Don't love that he's faced a poor level of competition in Canada, and his commit school is Liberty, which I'm guessing is not a great level of competition. Another guy who was more interesting to me is the center fielder, Clay McCamey, left-handed hitting outfielder. Like the range, like the high adaptability and work ethic, although I don't love the low baseball IQ. Another guy with pretty good speed and base running instincts. I think the bat could be average-ish to above average. The left-handed hitting center fielder, however, doesn't jump off the page for me. The $900,000 demand indicates to me that he may not be quite as high profile as our scout thinks he is in terms of his potential. Obviously, hard to criticize a .391 batting average, but his WAR and his batting averages have fallen every year of his high school career, which certainly doesn't demonstrate significant progression. Second baseman Gladerson Mendieta, 23-year-old, so an older prospect, only an average level of competition at Georgia Gwinnett College. I think the contact and the gap power could both be above average. The home run power not going to be there. We think his eye could be about average. Could play multiple positions in the infield, albeit likely not great at any of them. Does have decent speed. Don't love the low leadership. And the last guy is a second baseman, Rusty Walker. Like the personality with the high leadership, loyalty, and work ethic. Think the bat can be average-ish to slightly above average, with the exception of his gap power, which could be exceptional. Left-handed hitting infielder, although his defensive skills are not that great. Honestly, I can't say there's anyone in this pool as far as the position players that I see myself pushing people down and tripping over people to run the card up to the commissioner. So the hope is that someone really catches our attention among the pitchers. You can see only 165 potential player out there. Closer Jacob Newman. I think his stuff could be actually absolutely filthy, over 100 miles an hour eventually. The movement and control on his pitches could be average, but certainly has a lot of work to do with his control, like many high school pitchers. Fastball and slider could both be outstanding. Like the high work ethic, think he could be a very good reliever if he reaches his full potential. Do you take a 18-year-old reliever with your first-round pick? I don't know. In a draft like this one, perhaps. And outside of Mr. Newman, there were 7 other pitchers that were more interesting to me. We'll take a quick look at them now. One is the high school starter, Dan Anstrom. I think his stuff and his movement could be a bit above average, average control if he reaches his full potential. Like a lot of the personality traits with the high leadership, adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ, that's a great combination right there. I think he could have a 4-pitch arsenal, average stamina, average at holding on runners. A lot of work, and really kind of need his development to be just about perfect for him to be anything other than a 5th starter, long reliever type. But he is committed to UNC, so that's probably a decent indicator that he's got some talent to be able to go to a strong program like that. Closer Jeremy Texas Beck, another high school reliever, changeup and cutter combination. Pretty decent stamina, makes you think if he could add in another pitch, maybe you can turn him into a starter. I think the stuff, the movement and control could all be a bit above average as a reliever, so probably not quite as good as a starter, but think he can get his velocity into the mid-90s. Left-hander who's committed to East Carolina. Worth consideration, although I don't think I take him in the first round. College starter Todd Donnelly out of Boston College. Stuff and movement not too far off major league quality. Has a lot of work to do on his control for a guy who's almost 22 years old. Do like that he can hit the high 90s, extreme ground ball tendencies. Potential for a 4-pitch arsenal, but realistically it's kind of a 2-pitch arsenal of major league quality pitches at this point. Closer Ricky Morrison, another high school reliever, curve and cutter, not too far off. Don't love the low loyalty and baseball IQ. Decent at holding on runners, though. Think the right-hander could ultimately have well above average stuff and slightly above average control. Another reliever, this one a college reliever at least, Mark Kratzy Santoli out of University of Tennessee Martin. I think the stuff could be outstanding with him. Love the 100-mile-an-hour velocity. Love a potential 4-pitch arsenal, although it doesn't look like he's ever really going to have the stamina to be a starter. But he's got a ton of work to do on his movement and control. Just don't think that the ceiling is high enough, and his chance of getting to that ceiling is realistic enough for us to spend a lot of time thinking about him. College pitcher Matthew Vance out of California, talked about him. Stuff could be average, movement and control a bit above average, potential for a 4-pitch arsenal, but a lot of work to do on the change. Don't love the low baseball IQ, but at least he is further along than most of these prospects, has a credible case to be a average to slightly average major league starter, and he has faced a great level of competition at Cal. Another college pitcher, this one a closer, Jordan Wood, out of Oklahoma City University. So only a fair level of competition for him there. We think the fastball and splitter are already both well above major league average. So the stuff could be exceptional, and the movement and control we both think could be the average-ish range. Think he can add a little bit of velocity, almost 22 years old. If we believe our scout, I think Wood is an interesting guy to consider. But as we talked about at the start of the episode, just not sure how confident we are believing our scout at this point. And before we take a final look at the position players, we'll talk about the 8 pitchers who we were more interested. The closer, Jacob Newman. The closer, Jeremy Beck. The closer, Ricky Morrison. The reliever, Mark Santoli. And the closer, Jordan Wood, were all not expected, according to the mock draft, to go in the first 5 rounds of the draft. Obviously, that will not be the case, and my hunch is that multiple of those players, if not all of them, will ultimately be off the board by the time we get to the 4th or 5th round. But the mock draft is at least telling us we have a little bit of time with them. The 3 starters all are projected to go in the first 4 rounds of the draft, though. Dan Mershey Anstrom, the high school starting pitcher, committed to UNC, is projected to go with the 6th pick in the 4th round. Matthew Vance, the starting pitcher out of the University of California, is projected to go with the 21st pick in the 3rd round. So in theory, we could try to wait around on him. The only guy that the mock draft says we'd have to take right now is the starting pitcher out of BC, Todd Donnelly. He is projected to go with the 4th pick in the 2nd round. So seems very unlikely that he would still be on the board when we look to make our selection. And we've got 10 position players who ended up on my short list. Honestly, can't say that there's anyone that I'm in love with here. So if there's ever a draft where we end up going with someone who's not on our short list, and the Worldwide Scouting Department has somebody who caught your eye that I haven't talked about, this could be the year where something like that happens. 8 of the 10 players who are on the short list are already projected to be off the board, or are projected to be off the board very shortly. So we're probably going to need to grab one of those 8 players now if we want a chance at them. The 2 that we might be able to wait on include the second baseman, Rusty Walker, who's committed to Tennessee. The batting profile doesn't look horrible. The personality is good, although the defense isn't. The OSA is reasonably constructive on him, but for whatever reason, he's not projected to go in the first 5 rounds of the draft. Another guy that we could potentially wait on is the center fielder, Clay McCamey, not expected to go until the 30th pick in the 4th round. So definitely seems like if we like him, we may have an opportunity to pick him up a little later. Among the rest of the guys, though, 6 of them are projected to be first-round selections, 2 of them projected to be second-round selections. Dan Macon, the young shortstop, projected to go with the 11th pick in the 2nd round. Like the contact, gap, power, and speed, he is a versatile defensive player, potentially in the infield, although we don't think he's going to be great anywhere. Could also play the corner outfield for us. Did go to Amityville Memorial High School, so hopefully he's avoided that house. The other player who's projected to go in the 2nd round is the catcher David Slocum, projected to go with the 1st pick in the 2nd round. So if we want Slocum, probably have to take Army Slocum right now. As I mentioned, the other 6 players all projected to go in the first round. We'll go from the latest draft point in the mock to the earliest. Glenderson Mendieta, the left-handed hitting 23-year-old college second baseman, projected to go with the 3rd supplemental first-round pick. Certainly further along than a lot of these players, but don't know that his profile is going to magically be the college player that we somehow have some success with in this series. First baseman Keith Kennedy, already expected to be off the board with the 32nd overall pick. Probably the most interesting overall bat. He is just a pure left-handed hitter, but think that if the contact really can get to an average-ish range, with the power in the eye in particular being well above average, could be a useful designated hitter, has the durability to be in the lineup every day. But as I noted, he was projected to be with the 32nd pick, so he's already expected to be off the board. Ruben Villagrana, the college first baseman out of southeastern Louisiana, projected to go with the 30th pick overall. Does look like he could be a more than competent major league hitter, has a somewhat higher floor than other players according to our scout, and not a horrible ceiling if he reaches his full potential. Travis Ronning, Piglet, mentioned that his profile scares the heck out of me given the lack of success we've had with college high draft picks over the last 5+ years at this point. But Ronning projected to go with the 28th pick in the draft. So if we do want him on our squad next year, now is almost certainly the time when we would need to select him. Another first baseman, Bubba Dull, expected to go with the 26th pick overall. The home run power in the eye and the 6'8" height are all intriguing for a first baseman. The rest of his profile is not necessarily all that inspiring, although I do also have to admit that I do like the fact that he is a switch hitter. And the highest regarded player that we're considering, at least according to the mock draft, is the second baseman Charlie D.C. Fox. He was expected to go 19th overall in the mock draft. I think that he could be a little above average at everything in terms of his hitting. As we talked about earlier, the speed, the glove, not all that inspiring, and neither is the low leadership. So I wish I could say that there was someone that I felt incredibly strongly about, but I don't at this point. So as I noted, the Worldwide Scouting Department can potentially have a pretty significant influence on what we end up doing in the draft this year. If you've got thoughts, would love to hear them in the comments section. And until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.